Welcome to the Seth Campbell podcast. This show is to equip you with real world tactics to improve your leadership skills, build your wealth, and cause you to leave a multi-generational impact on your world. This is episode 13. I owe you an apology. And I owe each of you an apology because I've been avoiding this topic. And it's against my personal mission of changing family trees, of growing leaders, avoiding a conversation that we all face in some way or another. And today I want to talk about cancel culture. I'm triggered. That person isn't okay by my set of rules. And in the first half of this, I'm going to push you. So I'm giving you a fair warning. I'm going to push you. And I'm going to ask you to breathe a couple of times. I'm going to push you and challenge probably some of your deepest buttons. I know this is a sensitive topic. It's one that people get canceled for even bringing up. And I certainly have been through that enough of myself. So I want to just go right at it. I've been avoiding this too long. And in fact, I might trigger you. It may not be okay by your set of rules. You may choose to stop and cancel me midway through this. My request is to hear me all the way through. And as I'm discussing these things, look inward. Some of the most powerful things we do in life, really, as you by now, is looking inward, particularly on our leadership journey. We've often talked on here in this podcast, this is in the framework of leadership, yet I put leadership for all of us, whether it's parenting, leading others, other generations. People are watching us all around us. And I might also be in a leadership role at work. Certainly, we're all leaders in some form or another. And I think this may be the most valuable lesson to learn in unlocking every, I don't use that word lightly, every negative relationship pattern, negative work environment pattern, failure pattern in your life. It very well probably will link back to some version or some part inside of this. It's a meaty topic. And I'm gonna do my best to go through it all in one episode. If we need to extend, we can into another episode. So if you're unhappy with how things are going in some part of your life, it could be spiritually, physically, mentally, relationship issues, financially, any part, work, then this is for you. In fact, I think this is probably the single most damaging mindset that's being taught to our next generation. And it's going to cause significant problems in our culture. I believe this is why suicide in the cancel culture, this is why suicide nowadays is escalating. I brought some stats, particularly this is amongst kids. Listen to some of these recent studies. And we know that during the pandemic of 2020, things got much worse. Suicide rates, alcoholism rates, drug abuse rates, divorce rates all skyrocketed. In my opinion, that necessarily wasn't about the pandemic. It's like what we say about money. Will money cause you to be good or evil? No, we know money amplifies who you already are. So if you were somebody who's a giver, money's just going to make you more of a giver. If you're somebody who's a taker, money's going to make you more of a taker. I think probably what happened is the pandemic forced some things that it took away our ability to distract ourselves, and it brought whatever issues we may have been dealing with internally straight to the forefront. So I don't think the pandemic caused more suicides, more divorces, more alcoholism, more drug abuse. I think it just brought what was already there faster to the surface. It forced people to face their things. And we see the reaction that's happened with a lot of it. So check out some of these rates. 1.4 million people in the U.S. attempted suicide in 2019. The teenage suicide stats are insane. 18.8. So it's almost 20% of teens considered attempting suicide in 2019, and it went up in 2020. So that's one of every five. So you think about a classroom of 30 kids, and I think classrooms are probably bigger than that. It's like 6 of those kids in there are thinking about committing suicide. 40% of LGBT youth seriously contemplating harming themselves. Adolescent boys are 5 times more likely to commit suicide than girls their age. 56% of students know someone who self-harms or has already committed suicide. 56%. Intentional self-harm. Check this out. This is like heartbreaking. Intentional self-harm is the second most cause of death in 10 to 14-year-olds right now. Only behind car accidents, number one killer of 10 to 14-year-olds. Intentional self-harm is now the number 2 cause of death from 10 to 14-year-olds. People between age 15 and 29 commit 1/3 of all suicides. 50%, half of lifetime cases of mental health illness will develop before a person becomes 17 years old now in the United States. It goes on and on. In April 2020, requests for professional assistance with general anxiety disorder increased by 93.6%. I've got family members, teenagers who dealing with some of this stuff, and we can't even find counselors for them because they're all booked up, like suicidal. And it's hard to find a place, a bed for them to get help. So I think that this is not the absolute cause of what we're talking about here with suicide, yet it is all lumped together with a mindset. So hear me, I'm addressing a mindset that exists and it's growing. The mindset that's growing, I believe, is the issue. And yes, this is a leadership podcast. It's a change your family tree podcast more than anything, which is why we're having this conversation, because my hope is you will tap into your leadership and all the people that you influence around you in any format and start to address this and go right to it. I want to make a statement, and I'm just going to say it about cancel culture, and then we're going to review it and come back to it. And here's what I believe to be true. Cancel culture is a mirror of actually canceling yourself. We're only angry by what we see in ourselves. Otherwise, we wouldn't respond to anything with anything but love and compassion, because we would be wanting to help that person through what we've already overcome. So that's a weird sentence. Sit on it for a little bit and then let's dance around and then come back to it. And I'm going to narrow this down, as complicated and as heavy as of a subject this is. Remember, I'm hitting you hard with the heavy stuff, talking about children and teenagers and suicide, because that's how serious it can be. And make no mistake, though, I am talking about a one-on-one conversation with somebody you lead about their performance. Like, it does exist there too, just certainly maybe not as heavy, obviously, as this, but it's the same thought process, same pattern. So I'm gonna turn it into a 1, 2, 3, how this flows. And you might want to write this down. Beliefs go to a trigger, and a trigger goes to a response. So I have written down beliefs with an arrow to the word trigger, and then an arrow to the word response. So beliefs, then trigger, then response. Beliefs, then trigger, then response. So let's talk about beliefs. Beliefs is simply what I believe. This is okay. This isn't okay. This means I'm good. This means I'm a bad person. This means that person is good. This means that person is evil. It's what I believe. Triggers. That thing just happened, initiated my belief. That thing that just happened initiated my belief. That's a trigger. My brain confirms the belief, and then my emotions start. So it happens instantaneously. Like, my belief was just triggered, and my emotions, my brain confirms that, my emotions start to build, and then I have my response. And sometimes all that can happen in all three of them in a split second. You know that. What are responses are joy, happiness, and leadership. And my response might be to reward. It might be to reprimand. It might be to promote. It might be to fire. It might be to ignore responses for myself. It could be go speak out. It could be go internal. It could be isolate. It could be fight. It could be hate. It could be cancel the person. It could be defend myself. It could be defend the person. It could be abandon the person. It could be abandon myself. It could be become depressed. It could be my response to be attack. It could be kill myself. Those are all reactions. So let's address the elephant in the room. First of all, because this is a big subject, as you can tell. And it starts with like this thought is, okay, is there good and evil? I believe absolutely yes. I actually don't believe in what's called relativism. It's a form of Nietzsche. It's a philosopher named Nietzsche, which a lot of is very highly taught in our society. And relativism is there is no absolute truth. All truth is relative. What you believe is right. And if I believe it's wrong, it's right because it's your view and that's right. And I actually think that is where it begins to break down. I believe the opposite of that. I think there is such a thing as absolute truth. And a lot of people struggle with that, and it goes against relativism, which sparked this form of leadership, this form of teaching. So, for example, if you believe murdering children is right, then that's your view, so that's right. I actually believe that there's a plumb line of truth from our creator, and it's 100% possible to be wrong about something. See, that sentence alone is enough to spark up some people these days. I believe it's 100% possible to be wrong about something. Here's a chair. I believe it's a chair. I think it's wood. Okay, we're both right. I see it as a step stool. Okay, sure. Well, it's not a chair whatsoever. Sorry, that's wrong. It is a chair. So can there be, let that sink in, breathe for a second, let it sink in. It's possible, it is possible that you're wrong about something. It's possible that I'm wrong about something. Is it possible that I answered the math question incorrect? 2 + 2 does not equal 5. No, that's true. I'm actually wrong. Now, one answer can have plenty of rights. That's into the, I see wood, I see a step stool. Okay, we're both right. Now, I say yay, you say nay, like it's possible one of us is wrong. In fact, the funny part is about that philosophy, you can undo this relativism philosophy. And I know I'm not going to go too deep on this because I know I'm going to lose some of you getting philosophical, but I'm laying down the groundwork to where we're going and how we take action and improve our leadership and improve maybe our generations with this. So philosophically, it's what we call a circular argument. The famous one is religion. It's one that people don't like to talk about either. If I say all religions are correct and one religion steps up, say Christianity, says no, there's actually only one way to get to heaven. So now just think about that, even from a logical standpoint. If I say all are correct and all includes the one that says only we're correct, then it's a circular argument. By definition, all can't be correct, because if that one's correct, then that means the other ones aren't. And if that one's correct, then that means that one's not, which then turns on itself. Do you get that? It's weird, but it's funny when you put it that clear. You can't all be right about the same thing. Now, you can all have your own beliefs. That's fine. That's not what we're saying. There is such a thing as absolute truth. And what undoes it is the moment somebody says there's only one way to do it, then that automatically means they're either right or wrong compared to the person that says everything is right. So I don't know if you might have to replay that one and listen to it again, but just think about it. Christianity can't be right if everybody else is right. And then the other ones can't be right if everybody else, if it includes Christianity, because Christianity says they're wrong. That's just philosophically, and I use that definition because it, stirs people up. So can we all believe differently? Absolutely. Absolutely. Am I telling you which one is right? No way. Do I get to decide that? No. Do I know? Absolutely not. I didn't say that, and I'm not saying that. All I'm saying, the first step is to understand that everything is true is one of the biggest impossibilities that children are taught. Everything can't be true. That's where it begins. Right? That's where the unhealthy belief starts to form, and then it can build off that. So when you study human history, it's interesting because you watch almost everything we do. It's like a pendulum that swings side to side and eventually goes from one extreme to the other. So we had so many generations of some leaders out there and some parents like dictating us their right and wrong, their beliefs, their prejudices, their injustices. And we wake up, we get wiser, and we're like, this is crazy. We're not going to judge people by the color of their skin and their accent or whatever, or their gender. And we start to push all the way to the other extreme. And we can actually go to the other extreme where you actually can't have an opinion on anything, or you'll get persecuted for sharing your opinion or having an opinion. Do you see how that pendulum can work? And we're starting to go there inside of, particularly in leading this next generation. And a lot of us have some of the next generation coming up into the workforce. And one of the greatest things I learned early in my career, and again, I can credit McDonald's for this one, is they started training on different generations. So you definitely, as a leader, want to learn the differences between the baby boomers, Gen X, Gen Y, millennials, Gen Z, that is now coming into the workforce, because they're different. And we want to be able to understand their natural tendencies. And it anchors back to this, what their natural beliefs tend to be. It's a little bit of a stereotype. It tends to be. And if you watch a pendulum, you can see it. Like you can even see pessimism, optimism swing back and forth inside of generations. So it's good as a leader to understand that the next generation tends to come up with a different set of beliefs than we do. And conflict can happen, and we've all seen it we were those people coming up into work, and the generation above us was like, had a problem with our beliefs. And then I remember when millennials came to the workforce, man, they got criticized like crazy. And I'm like, you're missing the beauty of some of the millennial beliefs. And so I say this to improve leadership, because these are beliefs that are coming up, and there's a couple of extremely dangerous ones, and we're starting to witness them now. And I believe it's going to affect your company. I believe it's going to affect your home life. I believe it's going to affect a lot of things. So I bring it up because silence is probably the worst thing we can do about it. We are leaning, the pendulum swinging to this place of, hey, we're going to persecute anybody who expresses their opinion, because when I hear you express your opinion, I may be hearing you saying I'm wrong. And that's not okay anymore, because now I've got right. And that in of itself was, by the way, you expressing your opinion too. That's the interesting part. Just understand that for a second. Like we're probably pushing it too far where we don't express opinion, or we don't want to express opinion, or we beat up somebody who may express an opinion different than ours. So breathe. I'm not going to leave you. Let me give you some relief before you get triggered, if you're not already triggered at me. Way back in the beginning of this whole thing is what leaders, parents, heck, humans must begin to master for us to have a true level of joy, peace, productivity. We must just write this down and think about this. We must master the ability to separate human from the action they just did. I'll say it again. We must master the ability as leaders, as humans. We must master the ability to separate the human from the action they just did. We must master the ability to separate the human from the beliefs they have today. Have you ever done something that you now, or at the time even, didn't believe was the right thing to do? Yes, raise your hand. I'll raise 2 hands on that one. Have you ever changed your mind on something you believed in? Absolutely. Before, you believed in this so wholeheartedly, and now you're like, yeah, I don't believe that anymore, or I believe differently. Sure. So no human is equal to their actions. No human is equal to their beliefs. Brian Stevenson, there's a movie out on him. There's a book called Just Mercy. He's one of the most incredible human beings I've ever seen. I've seen him live a couple of times, and I give a lot to his organization. Look him up, and he's got a quote I just love. It's Brian Stevenson. It's Bray Stevenson, and just search Just Mercy or look at the movie. Michael B. Jordan played him. One day I'm going to have abs like him. Anyway, that's a different subject. Here's his quote. Each of us is more than the worst we've ever done. I just love that. Each of us is more than the worst we've ever done. Each of us is more than the worst we've ever believed. Each of us is more than the worst we've ever done. And I think all of us would be like, thank goodness. Thank goodness. So it begins with us as leaders tweaking this first. You're human, we're human. No human is equal to our beliefs. No human is equal to our actions. No human is equal to our emotions at the time, because all of us are on our journey. So whatever it was, whatever the trigger I had from that individual was, my reaction, I got a snapshot in time. I got a snapshot in time of that person's actions, a snapshot in time of their beliefs, a snapshot in time of their words, a snapshot in time of whatever. And it's simply a snapshot in time. Like, I have no idea how they were as a baby. I doubt that they came out of the womb on day one thinking and doing evil things. And who am I to say that 20 years from now, they won't have a complete heart change? So the real issue becomes when we link together somebody's actions or words or beliefs as their identity, like who they are. So now you can start to see where I'm going with some of the cancel stuff. Is the very different. What's the one skill we have to master first? The ability to separate humans from the action they just took, the beliefs they currently have, the words they just said, whatever. I'm going to separate judging their entire humanity, their entire journey on this planet from whatever I just saw right there. So now what I can do is somebody can say or do something I think is completely evil. I completely disagree with. And I'm not going to say who the person is as a human, their entire life, every second of life inside of that. Is what they're doing evil that day? Sure. Are they an evil person? I'm not going to say that. I don't know. I don't have enough data. I don't know their heart. I don't know their history. I don't know their future. So that's where that begins. Now, all we can address is what we saw, what we experienced, what we heard. And that leads us to the core of this belief, which is I, as a leader, as a human, I'm going to judge the action, not the person. And too often we're in a place where we collapse those two together, like I said. So as soon as my first core belief is I'm going to separate people from their action, I'm going to separate people's identity, who they are as a human, from what they said, what they did, what they believe at this moment in this snapshot in time, then that makes me more effective for myself and for the rest of the world. So when I lead someone at work and they mess up over and over and over again, as a leader, I'm not going to speak to their identity. I'm not going to say, man, they're lazy, they're stupid, they just don't care. But they just don't care. I can't seem to get this person to care about their work. The moment I do that, the moment I collapse their identity into their action or their beliefs or what I've witnessed, I fail as a leader because I don't know their heart. And I possibly have enough information on their entire history to be able to say they don't care or they're lazy. Their action could have been, doesn't mean they are. And if you think about that, I can only speak to their action. I could, you're going to feel this. I could go as far as loving them. I could actually love them and hate what they did. I can love a person, hate their action. I can love my persecutor. Hear me. I can love my persecutor, hate their lies. Are there victims out there? Heck yes. Did you leave me earlier when I asked you to open up on your beliefs? I hope not. I never ever said accept what people have done. I never said it was okay. In fact, I said there's a true right, wrong. Don't accept certain words, action, deeds. Don't accept what was done to you. That's fine. What I'm saying is don't go as far as say the action defines the entire person. So belief number one is people are not their actions, not their words, not their emotions, not their beliefs. And when you turn that inward, don't you feel good about that? I hope so. Have you been called out or judged for an actions or words or beliefs or what people thought they, and that sunk into your identity? No, all of us are in flux. All humans are in flux, subject to change. All of us. So hold on to that and let's move to triggers. This is mind-boggling. Did you know like what's being taught in a whole bunch of universities right now? That's how you can start to judge like some of the beliefs that are trickling in from the next generation as the pendulum swings that we talked about. This is going to improve your leadership when you start paying attention to the pendulum swing and get a little predictive on what's happening. So what's being taught in a whole bunch of universities is this triggering thing. And it's hold on in class, hold on. What you're saying is triggering me, so you need to stop. And the classroom is, okay, Johnny's triggered by that, so we all need to stop and respect Johnny and not say that anymore. The whole classroom. And I want you to just think about that for a second. Take that into the future. Like I can walk into a room and say, you're triggering me with that, so you need to stop. And we're actually training the next generation to adjust to that. And for those of us who are parents, we should be scared to death of that. Like the funny part is I tested out before earlier today, knowing that I was on top of this day. I went to my 12-year-old and I said, hey, your green shirt is triggering me. Please stop wearing it. And he's a smart kid. He came back with the best answer ever. He said, okay, if that's how things work, then taxes, I don't even know why he said that. It's so funny. That's probably me. Taxes trigger me. So let's call the IRS and tell them they need to stop trying to collect them from me. And I was like, that's the greatest answer ever. I gotta steal it for the podcast. Imagine like if we had the ability to make the outside world change to what we were offended by on the inside, then heck, let's get on a conference call right now and call the IRS and say like, we're personally offended by collecting taxes. And they need to respect our trigger and not trigger us by asking for money. So now, are there rules and regulations determine how we must act to keep our freedom? Yes. So then we have to understand that we have to adjust to certain environments and certain things around us. The problem is when rules move towards that relativism that we talked about, that Nietzscheism, and they become relative to the person feeling them, since then you can see how society collapses at that point. It's not maintainable. So here's perhaps the second most important truth you may hear in life, that, and there's another one to write down. If the outside, and the outside is work environments, he or she, them or they, my wife, my husband, my kids, my boss, if the weather, if the outside needs to change for me to be happy, I will die miserable. If the outside needs to change for me to be happy, I will die miserable. Now, the world will not conform to our beliefs and triggers. As adults, we start to know this, right? And I think about these kids that might be going through some of this training in the universities now to, okay, tell people when you're triggered and they need to change and you adjust to you. I don't know about you. Like, I'll walk in my first job at McDonald's and be like, all right, boss, slow down. Like, the way you're telling me to mop the floors, that's triggering me. I'm a little offended by that. I'm going to need you to speak in a different tone. What's going to happen? They'll be like, get the hell out of here. Next, right? That's how the world really is. Like, the world is not going to adjust to our triggers. And we're raising up a generation that is attempting to go that way. So we, as good, effective leaders and generation changers, we want to know that and not beat up anybody. What we want to do is we want to help open up that belief. And it is, if the outside needs to change for me to be happy, I will die miserable. So then what do we have? And a trigger goes back to that first sentence I said that was a little shocking about cancel culture. Cancel culture is really us canceling ourselves in the mirror, because it's the world telling, it's the universe, it's God, it's your creator, it's whatever you believe, my opinion, telling you what you need to work on, telling me what I need to work on. Because at the moment I get offended, at the moment I get sparked up, the moment I get triggered on something, then it's an opportunity for me to deal with something on the inside, letting go, forgiving, moving on, believing. I don't know. It is, and I believe it's going to keep coming up and coming up. And the more any of us attempt to change the outside world to adjust to it, the more let down we'll be. Because then we'll either start to avoid it, go into isolation, depression, suicide, because the world just isn't fair. The world just isn't being who we need it to be. Or we focus on what we can control, which is our reaction to it, our response to it. And I actually believe further than that, wherever you continuously get triggered is the universe, your creator, whatever, whoever you believe in, reminding you, you still got something to deal with here. You still got something to deal with here. How do I know that? How I believe that is because you wouldn't even notice it if it wasn't an issue. Are there people who don't get triggered on the thing that you and I get triggered on? They just walk by. They don't even see it. It's not even on their radar. Yes, it's because they don't have to deal with it. So every internal trigger is a sign of something for you. It doesn't mean you accept it. Doesn't mean it's okay. What happens is your need for it to change for you to be happy. Hear me clearly on that. I'm not saying accept what that person did to you or said to you. What I am saying is, don't need it to change for you to be happy, whether it's that way or not. So do you get that? Now, so then as a leader, let's get out of the heaviness for a second and go back to, as a leader, as a parent, I can now look at this and remember all the different responses. And most of our responses are futile efforts to get the outside to conform to our trigger, and our trigger being based on our belief. You get that? Most of our responses are futile efforts of getting outside stuff to change, to not hit our trigger that was based on our belief. And if we can choose to say, okay, every time I'm triggered, that's something for me to work on. Like, man, it would be great if that person changed. Man, it would be much easier. Man, okay, sure. And yet they're on their journey. They're doing what they're doing. Maybe I need to stay away. Maybe I'll distance. Maybe I'll go put them in jail. That's fine. However, what I don't need is for them to change for me to be okay. I'm not dependent on that. Now, do you get the difference? Not saying, man, I don't care if they change or not. I want them to change. I want my kids to do this. I want my wife to do this. I want all that. I want my employees to be the greatest ever. Is my happiness dependent on what they do? No. That's the difference. So now, as we get into that belief, you realize, because by the way, is somebody out there saying the same thing about me? Heck yeah. And where cancel culture is all of this revved up. It is not only do I need that person to change or to pay for what they've done, I need to go rally the troops. And just think about it for a second. That left unchecked, what gets canceled next? What belief gets canceled next? What thought gets canceled next? Like, we're potentially getting into a society where our children or the next generation, one mistake, one misinterpreted thing, one sentence, one belief, one opinion, one legitimate screw up, one really bad screw up. It could be more than jail time. It could be more than a penalty. It could be outcast. And that's where we get in trouble, because none of us can live up to that standard. None of us can live up to the standard that changes based on every single person in front of us. So this idea that, hey, because I'm triggered, you need to change. You just multiply that by every human and you realize that nobody can be nothing and everybody's got to be everything. We're in trouble. We're in trouble. There is no leadership in that world. It is a deep topic. It's a heavy topic. I went very serious because it has very serious implications. And yet I hope you also see the little pieces of this. I coach and consult a lot of business owners, and too often I hear them make an identity statement about their people instead of an activity statement. What does that sound like? It sounds, this person just doesn't care. This person's lazy. Why does nobody here care as much as I do? I'm like, you don't know. You don't know their insights. So now, did what they do show a pattern of maybe not taking this as serious as you do? Okay, but you don't know what they care, don't care. They told me that. Okay, what is it? How are you going to respond to it? And if the natural response is they're gone, you're gone, can you see how that person ends up alone? So go back and realize, hey, each of us is more than the worst thing we've ever done. I want to be treated that way. You want to be treated that way. How do I then, belief number one, with my employees, with my kids, with my coworkers, with society in general, those people on Facebook, people are not their words. People are not their actions. People are not their emotions. People are not their beliefs today, because it's all subject to change. Everybody's on the journey just like us. So therefore, now I want to get to a place of, okay, that's not for me. That's not my crowd. That's not my scene. And I can hate that action, hate those words, hate that. I can hate the belief, love the person, because we're all on that journey. Now, that may seem very altruistic, very flower child. I don't know what you want to call it. Yet in leadership, I can't tell you how many times it's helped to love the person that I'm mad at, love the underperformer in that snapshot, and not allow my brain to say who they are as a person. In fact, my brain now, I've programmed it most of the time to say, they're an awesome person. What they did was really stupid or really bad, in my opinion, or man, I hate that belief. Love them. And when I can get there, I have enough love and compassion to be a more effective leader. And now I've trained myself, every time I'm triggered, especially the really big triggers, I say, okay, that's my creator looping it back up, because there's something I need to deal with. Why do I need that to change for me to be okay? And when you can get there, I can't tell you in the workplace how many fights disappear, how many dances disappear, how many avoidances of conversation disappear when we're all people and we can disagree on an action and still be okay with each other. Do you know how many employees you have right now, if you're a leader, that are hiding from you? They're scared to come say, I don't know what the hell I'm doing here. I don't understand this. I need help. Because in their mind, that's, I'm a failure, identity statement. I'm not smart, identity statement. They're going to think that I'm no good, identity statement. Like, you got people right now, your kids might be hiding from you because they think that you're thinking about them as a human. And when you can create an environment of, hey, you're awesome. Remember one of the most downloaded podcasts I've had, I think it was episode 7 or 8. It's you and I are okay. You and the job are not okay. It's the same thing. Hey, son, you and I are good forever. What you do and I are not always. Hey, employee, you and I are good. As a person, I love you. Doesn't mean you need to stay working here. But what I'll never do is think less of you because of what you did or said. Or I'll just say, that's not a match for this role. It's not a match for this company. It's not a match for this. Not a match for your job. That's fine. Doesn't mean you're not fine. So as you get into that distinction, I got to tell you, it starts to evaporate all this, and we can look around. I love the cancelers. I don't like that. I'm not attacking them. I hope you see that. I'm attacking the belief. I've got a problem with the belief that people are wanting the outside to change for them to be okay. And yet we're all on a journey. I love them too. So just channel that, go back, listen to this a couple of times. Hopefully you'll invite some people to listen to this. It certainly goes beyond leadership, yet you can see in the workplace and in home, the people you lead need this. We've got to start creating environments where you're okay and you and I can disagree on your belief, your actions, your words. We can disagree on that. We can fight on that. But what we won't disagree on is the fact that you're an awesome person and I'm an awesome person doing the best we can with what we got. All right, with that, I'll leave you. I hope you take this, move forward, and I will see you all next week. Thanks, everybody, for listening. Bye. All right. Now I will let you unmute yourselves. Are you there? Questions, comments, thoughts, concerns? Somebody want to yell at me? An amen or what? Alyssa, you're on mute. Are you saying something to me? Oh, you can't unmute? Oh, my bad. I didn't check the box. Now you may unmute.
No, I just was trying to tell you I can't unmute.
That was what you want. That was your big.
Yeah.
I can't unmute. I just poured it all out there.
I know you did. You were really passionate about that.
I was. All right.
Well, I'm in agreement with you. I think the more you can take a step back and I accidentally unmuted myself. I got excited.
Yeah.
Take a step back.
I've talked about this a lot, right, over the years, and both of us have gone on the same journey where being able to, from the point of we learned in NLP, right, people are doing the best they can with what they have as like a foundational kind of belief, and this idea of separating somebody's identity or needing them to be different.
Yeah, I think the next challenging thing is teaching others about it, right? Because we do judge others so quickly, and then we go straight to character. And again, even oftentimes it even isn't character, right? It's even capacity or
competency.
Competence.
Right? Yeah. Because they actually don't know what they're doing. That's why it always surprises me in the workplace of the label that some of us add on, like the fact that I don't know how to do this. Oh my gosh, I need to hide that. That makes me a bad person. It makes me say, shoot, like how many of us have always known how to do everything? I don't know. None of us. We all have capacity and competency issues. No, isn't that what we learn? So why is that? Why are we going to be weird about that? I don't know. Thank you.
Look at Teal.
Teal, burning desire to share. Let it out, Teal.
Oh, this was a good one. I think there are so many things, like this is one big concept that you could break down into. It lends itself to learning how to communicate better, because if we can go communicate to someone, that what did someone used to say to me all the time, like the conversation is the relationship, right? And it's so easy nowadays for us to silo ourselves and get on sides. It's like super easy. I was thinking about this kind of thing for myself this morning. I was thinking about something that was conflicting me going on. And I was like, I just walked it off and I said, this is just a like signal for me to learn how to be a better coach from all directions, not just to marry my EA or to the team, but like all directions, be a better coach. Because I was thinking like, I actually have some skills that could help people do things a little bit easier if I could learn how to give that to them in a way that wasn't critical or whatever it is.
Yeah, that's so huge.
A lot of stuff here.
You just said one of those powerful sentences. I hope everybody got, like, this is a signal for me. Like whenever I get triggered, this is a signal for me, not for them, for me. And it's tough. It opens it up, and you're right. Like I do. And yeah, but they need to be able to receive it without it being an identity statement. Okay. Can I help with that? Sure. I'm going to go over the top. I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about what you did. I'm not talking about you're an awesome person. You suck at accounting. Can we work on that? And the funny part is most of us are high achiever, where we get to the point of, yeah, I just needed to finally admit that I suck at that. Now I'm ready to go to solution. But as long as, okay, where's the class? Where's the book? Like that's us. That's who we are. And yet we tend to like lose all of that because like, oh man, I don't want to take it personal. I don't want to admit it, man. Just think how fast we would move. We didn't take it personal. Like we're not supposed to suck at stuff. We're not supposed to be stupid at stuff. We're not supposed to make mistakes. We're not supposed to be bad at some skill set. How many times I have people say, man, I just don't know if I'm good at my job. And I don't feel like I'm doing a good job. I don't feel like I'm good enough. I say, if you're not good enough,
You're not supposed to be good enough for your opportunity.
I'm like, the moment you are good enough, you're probably bored. I don't know.
Right.
Like, and it's like, how much energy is wasted? I'm like, man, what if I'm not good enough to do this? What if I'm not good enough to do this? You've heard me say it's like, that's energy loss. Like even it's an unanswerable question. You're good at half of it. You're good at it today. You're not good at it tomorrow. It was a good day, but who cares? Like, you almost want to get to, I'm not good enough at this. So how do I get better?
Yeah. And that's, again, there's a couple concepts in there. That's the need for curiosity. Like we don't we do have to have curiosity about what others are doing or why or whatever, but also have curiosity for ourselves. Am I stopped here every single time? What question should I be asking?
Yeah.
And
like
then
we've got this problem with the possibility of that label, that identity statement. So we'll avoid it.
yeah.
And what if you just said, man, I really don't understand financials and I'm embarrassed. And you just say that out loud enough, guess what you're going to do? You're going to get help. You're going to run into somebody like, wow, that was me too. They don't teach us this stuff in school, so don't worry about it. Let's go learn. Oh, really? I thought I was supposed to know all this. I heard it. It's funny. I went to a Tony Robbins event this last week, and it just reminded me of something similar that I think somebody there said, whereas imagine our children like first trying to walk that first time, like they stand up, they take a step and fall. Do we as a parent say, stop walking, just give up? Like you clearly are no good at this. You can't even stand up without your legs shaking. That's embarrassing. Like just stop. Just stop trying. Like we don't do that. It's like, oh my gosh, this failure is the greatest thing. It's, oh look, oh they're so cute, they fell down. Oh man, they took 2 steps and then they fell. Oh look, and then somehow as adults we're like, oh no, I need to put on a show, and then I need everybody else's show to be on point, or I'm gonna cancel them. All right, too much to ponder. I had too much time off.
Did you?
Love you all. Go release somebody, and more than anything.
So now, can I ask you what your thoughts are? Since we're offline too, that he was.
We're not offline. We're still recording, and this is
whatever. But now that you're done with your topic here, is that did you see that he was not guilty on all charges? Big trial that's been going on.
Oh, you're talking about You're talking about
Rittenhouse, the guy that
Rittenhouse
in Illinois.
No, I didn't see that. Oh, now I see your little message to me. Not to distract you, Rittenhouse. That would have distracted me, so I'm glad I didn't read it. Yes.
Okay, yeah. While you were talking, this came in.
All right. Do you have anything you want to add to that?
No, I wanted to ask.
Are you too scared to say your opinion? I don't know enough about it.
No, I think it's good.
Yeah.
I think he shouldn't have had a gun running on the streets, and the government should have stopped. That's what I think.
Yeah.
So if somebody comes on my property and starts writing, I'm going to shoot them.
Everybody remember that. She's in Boise.
What's that address in Boise?
All right. Yeah. And so my I'll leave with this is the core pieces. Anytime something on the outside has to change for me to feel better, I gotta let that go. That's the universe or God telling me like something for me to work on. My necessity for something that I have no control over to be different, to equate to my okayness, has to go. And with others that we lead, be very careful. Your own words. Rarely do you say it to the person. Do we say, hey, you're really lazy, or hey, you just don't care? It's more like what we say in private. It's what we say. I hear it on my coaching calls with people. I hear it on my consulting calls. I hear leaders say it to each other. Man, my people don't care. Just be very careful. The moment you say that, you've now actually taken yourself off the hook for being a better leader, because that's an easy answer. Who cares? Even if you're right, it doesn't matter. They care, they don't care. Maybe they don't care right now. Maybe they would care. How good of a leader would you be to figure that out and help them through that?
Can I repeat something?
Yeah.
You said anytime something exterior, you need something exterior to make yourself feel good. You've got
something to work on for you.
Okay.
Yeah. I believe that's God or the universe, whatever you believe, serving it up, like saying, You haven't dealt with this. Anytime you're triggered by the outside, you're going to keep being triggered on that. And what we try to do is we try to conform our world to be an environment where we don't have to be triggered anymore. Like, I'm going to stack people in places such that I'm not in that trigger anymore. And the truth is, it's just going to come around some way or another. Deal with the trigger. Doesn't mean you're okay with what happened. What it means is I'm okay whether that happens or not. I'm okay if that person chooses that path or not. I'm okay. I feel for them. I don't want to be around that. I won't be around that. However, like, I'm not suffering because they do X, Y, Z.
Suffering is optional.
It is. All right, Denise, did you have something? You came on? Burning desire to share?
I was going to ask a question, but you really just answered it in a different way. I was going to ask how you handle someone who's not teachable, not willing to admit maybe they don't know how to do something. But you really just answered it, because that trigger is that it's showing that it's something in me that needs to change, and don't even worry about it.
Yeah. That's the
what
weird
that
part.
person is doing or not doing.
It's so hard to believe. Like, how could that be? Like, the reason why it bothers you is because I'm past it. No, the reason why it bothers you is because you're not past it. Otherwise, you wouldn't even notice. That's the weird part. It would be in your blind spot. That's the really big mind F of this whole thing. All of my triggers are issues inside of me, something about me that my unconscious mind is trying to say, you got to deal with this.
Mhm.
Otherwise, you wouldn't even notice it. It'd be like in the blind spot. You wouldn't even notice. You probably don't notice a lot of things. You go to a restaurant and you hear all those conversations. And the one, I promise you, the one that you hear and catch is a trigger. And then that tone of voice, and that's okay. I got to deal with that. So it's like, you know, how you with somebody that's not coachable. I don't know that they're not coachable. They may be acting that way. You can be careful. That's not an identity statement. And then it's, I love this person enough that I'm going to say, hey, I'm struggling with how this is going. My belief is starting to go towards like you not being necessarily coachable. I'm sure you are. Like, here, I care about you enough. I know your goals. I know where you want to go. I believe this is going to get in your way. I could be off on that. Do we want to address that together or not? And then I'm allowed to set boundaries, but I don't need you to change. I may even feel bad that you don't. It's fine. And I may choose to not be in that environment. However, I'm going to be okay if you don't change. That's the trickier part. I'm going to be okay. I have compassion. Like, I want family members to stop using drugs. I have compassion, a broken heart when they do that. And yet I'm going to be okay if they choose not to. I'm still going to love them. I'm not going to be, does that make sense? Like, my happiness, my peace is not going to be dependent on them. Because I believe God's in control. The funny part is, I don't want to get too far on this, but when I've given up hope, it's because I've already dictated the future. And none of us can do that. Could the person stop? Yeah. Could God send somebody else in their life and they miraculously change and they become president of the United States? Sure. All right. Then I can survive the next 5 minutes without thinking the life is over for them and for me. That might be going too far, but I'm weird. All right. Love y'all. Have a great weekend on that one.
Not an excuse not to fire people, Denise.
Yeah, it's just not a match. Love you guys. Bye. Welcome to the Seth Campbell podcast. This show is to equip you with real world tactics that improve your leadership skills, build your wealth, and cause you to leave a multi-generational impact on your world. This is episode 14, titled The Great Quit. So you probably, if you've been paying attention to the news lately, it is the end of 2021. It's been a crazy amount of last couple of years. And the big topic out there in a lot of ways, other than the variants of the virus and all kinds of crazy stuff that's going on, is this phenomenon that is, some have titled The Great Quit. And I want to take a few moments to dig into that, the broader issue around that, because this is obviously a leadership podcast and many folks here have people working for them, with them. You yourself are working with other people. And it's a really strange time where we had extreme unemployment go really fast, some of it rather temporary because of the shutdown of 2020 with the coronavirus COVID-19, and then the resurgence where we got to this weird place of extreme labor shortages, particularly in like service industries. And we have this like dual thing happening now, which is, it's actually pretty rare, this part of it. However, I do want to add some context of where these types of things have happened in history in the past, and then how to best take advantage as a leader, as a person, as an investor. This will be a really good topic for you to stay in line with where times are right now. Because one of the worst things you can do in the world of business is in building wealth and building generational wealth is to put your head down, ignore what's happening, ignore the cycles of business, ignore the cycles of economy, ignore the cycles of relationship, whatever it may be, and treat every cycle the same. That's actually a really bad habit and can cause you to do well where that type of action works well, and in cycles just needs a different type of action, different type of response, different type of leadership. So right now we're in this strange like duality that's happening where there are extreme labor shortages in some industries, and we're hearing things like major sign-on bonuses, huge increases in pay, things like that, while we also have what I read last week before last, largest amount of people quitting their job in the history of us tracking labor. Millions and millions of people inside of a 2-week period. So it's very interesting what causes that. And so let's nickname it the opportunity rubber band. That's really what it is in my book. It's this opportunity rubber band. And what happens is whenever all of society and societies, generations, businesses, other countries, cultures, timelines actually run pretty much on a pendulum. In other words, like if you study history, you'll see this interesting phenomenon of humans, things run on a pendulum. In other words, when many of you about the different generations, right? We got baby boomers, we got Gen X, then we got the millennials, then we got Gen Z. And for fun and creativity / leadership, we tend to, label these generations, what their strengths and weaknesses are, what their tendencies are, and why they act or behave or believe, see the world in certain ways. You'd all agree with me that these generations are different. And what's interesting is they actually flow on a pendulum. And in the further, like a pendulum, the further one swings to the extreme, the faster it flips to the other extreme. Happens in politics, by the way, too. We tend to see one party swing things one way, and if they go really far to the extreme, then you can believe that the candidate from the other side, if it goes far enough to one extreme, is going to be further over that way. It's fascinating how humans behave in that way. So like generationally, for example, you can almost watch pendulums as fear-based on generations. They say Tim Elmore is probably one of the best researchers. I've read books and whatnot where he studies generations and the pendulum swing between them. In other words, where we say this group works harder than that group, or this group is more risk adverse or takes less risk than that group. All it really is, they grew up watching their parents take a ton of risk, and so they take less. And then those people saw their parents be too conservative, and the next generation starts taking more risk. It's pretty funny how that is if you actually go back and look at that. So what happens is we have that happening because we are in the midst of millennials moving into leadership roles, baby boomers moving into retirement, and Gen Z coming into the world of work, like the entry-level workforce. So that in of itself, by the way, changes the workforce, and it changes leadership, and it changes how the pendulums show up in the workplace. And whenever that happens, you do tend to see movement. You tend to see people leaving jobs and going for other jobs and things like that. So there's that. Now let's throw in this other pendulum, big one that happened, which was the shutdown, the COVID-19 shutdown, 2020. And so what happened is society swung to an extreme, stay home, work remote. We know all this. Work from home, school shut down, all of that stuff. And then boom, what happened, by the way? What was the first thing that took off when things reopened? It was travel. Remember, all suddenly it's like, boom, travel industry. And it was because like, man, I'm dying to get out of this house. I'm dying to go on vacation. I'm dying to get out. And then So that's an example of a rubber band snap pendulum swing. You get that? So whenever a rubber band gets pulled too far, and that one kind of came at us by surprise with the virus, then you'll see this whiplash effect. So here's the challenge inside of that. If I as a human, I as a parent, I as a leader keep acting the same way, and I don't at least recognize, man, I'm flowing with the pendulum, or I jumped on the rubber band snap, or my mind is playing tricks on me too, or maybe I'm okay because I have an awareness around that, and I now recognize like where I want to participate in this rubber band snap or where I don't. Maybe my people don't. And it's my job as a leader to sound the alarm bells of, hey, calm down. Let's look at it this way. Leadership is teaching people how to think so they can get what they want when they want it. So it's my job to teach people how to think so they can get what they want when they want it. And these pendulum swings tend to throw that off. The rubber band snap ones, the quick ones, they really throw things off. And people wake up a couple of years from now saying, oh man, I thought I was doing the right thing and I am nowhere where I wanted to be. Or, oh man, I ran out the burning building with everybody else and it turns out like the building's where I belonged, but it really wasn't burning. So things like that happen. So let's dig into kind of some of the things that are showing up right now. And it's a little bit of open your eyes. It's a little bit of watch out. And I want you, as you listen to this, as a leader, to look around you and say, hey, maybe my people might be experiencing some of these. Maybe my people might be thinking some of this. And here, maybe I'm thinking some of it. And here's how I need to maybe put it in the right framework so that I can actually take advantage of the opportunity rubber band right now and be out in front of it. Because the cool part is every time it happens, there's actually a big opportunity. More millionaires are made during those downtimes. You've heard that before. More property conveys, like more companies started up in the last 18 months than probably the last 20 years. So there are awesome opportunities. So the answer is not a blanket, do nothing, ignore it, stay calm. That's also putting your head in the sand, not what you want to do. So let's talk about what some of the things that are happening out there. We're going to continue to see a lot of mergers and acquisitions. That tends to happen even more so during these times because typically fear starts to ramp up rather high. And we may have had fear at the beginning of the shutdown, then optimism. And then what will happen is either virus not going away or just an exhaustion of, man, like it's just not fully what it used to be, or I'm not as free as I used to be, or not making as much money as I used to, or whatever. It's not as fun as it used to be. I'm overworking, I have too many Zooms and my weight went up. I don't know. That type of strain compounded over time will cause a level of fear, exhaustion, resignation, mentally, even if everything's fine financially or otherwise on the outside, that I'm more apt for partnership. I'm more apt for acquisition. I'm more apt for throwing the towel in, feeling like I need help or anything like that. Now, I'm a fan of mergers and acquisitions. I'm a fan of partnerships in general when done. I'm a fan of that type of stuff. However, I'm a fan of doing it for the right reasons that go along with your goals, and it becomes a great win-win for both people. So what happens is what we'll see, and we're already starting to see, particularly I work with a lot of people in the real estate industry, and we're absolutely seeing versions of acquisitions on the next level, which I predicted a while back. The next big level or big tier inside the real estate industry is going to be real estate teams, which I also participate in and interact with quite a bit. So what we are starting to see and continue to see is teams, which are really strong real estate related businesses. That's just an example. And you may find an equivalent for your industry if you're in a different industry, but signing on for lifetime commitments with their brokerage, or lifetime commitments to this, or accepting a check in exchange for something not long-term, try forever, which by the way is, as a business concept, should give you some concern. One of the challenges, here's what I want you to remember more than anything when it comes to business partnerships, mergers, acquisitions, those types of things. They are equivalent to a marriage and business. Marriages are presumably for life. And sometimes we forget that a business partnership is presumably for life too. And if you legally contract yourself, sell your company, allow your company to be acquired by a larger entity, or you take a check and sign a contract saying, like, in exchange for this check or this stock option or this opportunity, this short-term financial windfall, I will pledge my company, my entity to yours for life. That's an issue. You might say, I love that leader. I trust that leader. I trust, but you're one heartbeat away from another leader. That leader won't be there forever. That leader gets hit by a bus tomorrow, God forbid. Now, and we see this all the time in the world of business. And this is the time where weird things happen in economies where it's ripe for that. And a larger company can come by and throw a lot of cash or a shiny object at a business owner right now, scoop them up contractually, tie them up to something that where they essentially sell out their future and their freedom, promise to pour into them, give them tons of resources, access, cash, whatever, and actually may intend on doing that. The issue I always say is what happens when the next person takes over? Because that person, you see it time and time again, new CEO, new leader comes in and they're like, oh, put that one on the shelf. We're not putting any more money into that. Shut that down, shut that department down, or strip the resources. And if they're playing business defense, they don't say, oh, just give them less resources, but let them prosper. No, they like lock them up. That's a standard business concept because I don't want that person to leave me, or I don't want that person to compete against me. So once you've signed away a contract, or you've signed away your future inside of those things as a to another entity, then they very much can just say, we own it and we're going to put it on the shelf. And that thing can't go on its own. They can't leave us. They can't start on, and it's just over. It's a defensive move more than anything. So just understand that one of the things that happen inside of acquisitions and sellouts is not always like to blow that company up in a positive way. Sometimes it's to stop them or shut them down or control them forever, to never be a threat again. This is why we see actually a lot of nations. The EU is probably top of the list. The United States is showing a lot of signs right now. Like I saw yesterday in the news that the United States is actually blocking like the NVIDIA acquisition of ARM, which would have been the largest semiconductor acquisition of all time. And the current administration is not super friendly when it comes towards monopolies or antitrust, things that go that big. And it's because of those reasons. So what happens is one of the old tactics is for the giant elephant in the room who has a lot of cash is to just go acquire their competitor just to stop them or just to slow them down. So just understand, we'll see more of that. And I say all this because maybe you're the one that's tired. Maybe you're the business owner that's thinking, man, it would be nice to take that check and it feels I could use all those resources. Maybe you're in a company where they're having that conversation. Hey, we got this big offer. We're thinking about this. I'm telling you, it's happening more than you can imagine right now, particularly in the world that I interact with. And it seems really good. Understand the rubber band snap is when your mind plays tricks on you and you need to pause and think through this. And I'll give you a formula and how to go through that. But some of the red flags is what I'm talking about to watch out for first. Watch out for short-term gain for long-term sellout. This whole idea of signing a contract saying like my company will work with your company forever. I don't know anybody that would sign that. I don't know anybody that would sign that because how could I possibly know the future of your company enough to put my trust in those hands? Maybe I trust you. What happens if you get hit by a bus tomorrow? I don't know who the next person is going to be. And I may have burned 20 years of my life building this baby, this entity that somebody puts on the shelf. And I can't actually go build it again legally. The other thing to watch out for is name change. When we do this acquisition, we're going to pump you full of resources, but we need you to change your name. That happens a lot in real estate. And one of the downfalls of that is typically when somebody starts a real estate company, a lot of times they have their first and last name or their name as part of the entity. And when you see the big offer come in, it's actually one of the first things the big gorilla will try to get rid of is your first name, last name. And they'll have a very nice reason to make it more generic, to make it more mass appeal. One of the challenges with that is some of those contracts are so lopsided, they probably won't stand up in court. And I could probably walk into the judge and say, okay, Seth Campbell Real Estate or Seth Campbell, although I signed a contract on side in this acquisition or this deal, like I still own that. It's my name, right? It's harder to strip that away. But if I've changed my name to generic, that company, the big one, owns it and it's probably gone. It's probably nothing I could do. Should I change my mind or should things not be going or should they not even keep up their end of the deal? So it's very dangerous to do that. You've got to watch out for that. And your years of history and building can actually be erased overnight. And we need to watch for that. One of the other interesting phenomenons that we're seeing, and we'll continue to see it, whenever weird times like this happen inside of economies, the reason why mergers and acquisitions spark up, like I said, it's actually predicated on fear. Part of that fear is this, hey, we need to start grouping together, like strength in numbers. By the way, that's true. It's true. And yet what you want to do is make sure that the strength in numbers is done in a very fair and equitable way. Whereas it's fascinating to me. So, for example, I'm already witnessing a really interesting phenomenon in our world where we sometimes have a large organization like a real estate brokerage itself that does a deal to pour money into a local real estate team. And if you stop and think about that for a second, you've got to realize like now there's a dual motivation inside of that. And it can be very dangerous for that original company and their first purpose. So if I'm a real estate brokerage, and this is an example, and you might have another similar example in your industry, then not theoretically, in reality, my business model is to support all of my real estate agents and pour into them equally. Like they're going to pay me a percentage of their sales, and I'm going to provide them services to help them succeed. If I then also get into the business myself of buying into one of those people, but not all those people, then theoretically, everybody else in that real estate brokerage is paying me money, royalty or whatever, for me to then put against them back in the marketplace for them to lose listings or lose business or market share to the team that I decided to pour money into. And at some point, that's very dangerous for an industry. Whenever you see that, I get nervous about everybody else that is feeding money upstream that actually now is being used back against them. We used to be warned about that with the portals and marketing companies and things like that. Oh, they're using their own money against you in the marketplace. And you're right, it's dangerous. You should not be funding your future demise. So if I'm in business with a brokerage or I'm in business or I'm affiliated with a partner in some way or another, I need to make sure that in this day and age is when you'll start to see it, that money that I'm giving them is not actually being given to the person next to me that I might be competing with business for. Could you see how that's a real issue? And all that is that's the beginning of the consolidation. Typically, when we see pendulum swing, if we came out of one extreme, we're headed to the other extreme. Typically, on that pendulum swing the other way, we have consolidation. Some people call it winner take all. And it is a business phenomenon. It's real. Here's an example. How many search engines are there? Like, just name them. Like you say Google, then you say Bing, then you say Yahoo, then you say what? How many was there 5 years ago? A lot more than that. And how much market share does Google have in the search world? A lot. It was something like being spent, Microsoft, I don't remember what it was. It was like $60 billion or $6 billion. I don't remember. And then they just like they got 1% of the search market share. What happens when pendulum swings fast, winner take all? How many social media companies are there? And how hard is it for anybody else to start one now? So we do see in industries where it's highly segmented, like real estate, winner take all, the great consolidation starts to happen. And when you're in it at the beginning, you're like, oh, we'll never see a day where there's only 4 companies. That's crazy. Okay. You've seen it everywhere else. How many online retailers are mega retailers? You see the consolidation happening. What has Amazon done in the world of online retail? They're actually the retailer for a lot of other retailers. Like, it's not just Amazon selling their products, they're selling everybody else's products. And if you want to sell products, you probably should put them on Amazon. I don't know. Do you see what I'm saying? So the great consolidation, this is the beginning of it. By the way, biggest companies in the world are created during those times, hence the idea that there is opportunity here. What you want to watch out for is, am I being fooled? Am I riding fear? Am I part of an organization that is open my eyes? Am I feeding somebody else to take my own market share? And then am I going to fall for chasing after that? So inside of these consolidations, so now you get an idea of what's coming out and what's happening. And my goal for you is first to be aware, to not be blind. Second, the moment you realize that it might be happening with you, it might be happening in your industry, it might be happening inside the world that you're in, get rid of the fear. This is good. This is normal. It's economics. It's cyclical. It's human nature. It will be doing this thing long after we're gone, pendulum swinging. So instead, once fear is gone, where's my opportunity? How do I best take advantage of this? And it's not necessarily chasing or following everybody else. Here's my advice to you is stick to your mission, be flexible on your plan. And I know that's very big picture. Let me give you an example, like one of the best extreme examples out there that I think will help you put it in the context of it being very relevant. And I actually use like the church, the Christian church, as the best example I've seen of this. The Christian church has a 2,000-year-old message about Jesus Christ. 2,000 years ago, how did they deliver that message? They went into villages and they sat in the middle of the village and they taught and professed. 30 years ago, how did they deliver that message? We went into these buildings and we sang some songs and they taught and they did it. It wasn't 6 hours. It was maybe you got 25 minutes or you're going to lose people. I don't know. Now, how are the biggest churches delivering that message? Multi-site, through YouTube, on the internet. I watch Elevation Church and there'll be 600,000 people watch every single week. So now what changed? The world changed. The delivery changed. The message didn't. The mission didn't. So that's my point, is you have a mission on your heart. Your business has a mission on your heart. Your people, you have a mission that you set out to do. Hopefully, if not, stop right there and go clarify that. The channels that you deliver them on may be different. Be ready for that. So congratulations to those churches out there who said, hey, it's the same message. I'm going to use the internet. There's plenty of churches that said, oh, that waters it down. That ruins it. It's different. Yeah. And they missed the rubber band snap. They missed the pendulum swing to, hey, I'm going to get my content by my phone, like where the world went. They missed it. And they got 15 people and they're going to run out of money and they're going to fall apart. Your message didn't have to change. Your delivery needed to change. So channel that. What is my mission? What are we all about? And maybe there's a new way to deliver it. Maybe I need to take advantage of some of the technology. Maybe I communicate differently. Maybe my end user really wants to interact with me this way or with this device or in this thing. Maybe the metaverse is real and people are going to want their own space in the metaverse. So I better be ready to somehow sell metaverse property. However, what I still do is my mission is provide housing or provide home or provide comfort or provide a place or provide generational wealth. How I do that, now is the time to maybe look at the delivery of it changing. And what I don't need to do is be so scared of things changing that I feel like I need so much help doing it the old way that I sell out my future and the future of everybody else, unless that company, that partner, that acquisition truly is in alignment with my mission. And that is a way to tap into some of these new mechanisms. So I know this is a weird one, and I wanted to save it until we had more specificity, until I said, look, be ready to adjust exactly this way and do exactly this. The problem is, by the time that reveals itself, it's already too late. Most of the consolidation happened. Most of the sellout or the quit happened. And inside of this great quit, that's what we're seeing people do, even in their jobs. And the first thing is, hey, where's my head at? Where's my thinking at? Where's my people's thinking at? Is there fear truly driving this? Let's be real. And hey, and if it's fear of unknown, then let's try to figure out some knowns. Let's try to figure out what people really want, where they're going, how they want it delivered, and do we have an opportunity there? And I got to be willing to let go. If I'm in one of these industries where how people want it done now is totally opposite how I do it. If I'm the church with the building and I don't have any online streaming, then I better be ready to make that and not look at that as I'll never do that or it puts me out of business or anything like that. I really am a fan of the belief, put yourself out of business before your competitor does. So the real thing is get to reality, get to truth, try to see some of the patterns. Don't make decisions out of fear, make them out of opportunity. Don't consolidate in because you're tired. Look for the new opportunity inside of a way to carry the same mission that's on your heart. Don't change your mission. Change how you deliver it if need be, if it's time. And what'll happen is things become more known quickly as the pendulum continues to move. And there's a whole bunch of very wise people who wake up one day saying, good thing I didn't sell out. Good thing I didn't fall for that. Good thing I didn't freak out. Good thing I started the YouTube channel at this church. Good thing I took a chance on that. Good thing I didn't change my mission and I was flexible on the delivery and didn't freak out. So that's the best advice I have for you today is first check the fear, check the mindset, recognize where in your industry things are absolutely changing. And before you say, why not me? Why didn't I get that offer? What should I do? Let me chase after all that. Realize like that doesn't make them smart. It doesn't mean they're doing the right thing. Refocus on your mission, re-engage with your people, find their fears, find their hesitation, speak truth about what's happening. I spoke some truth today, and I'm going to really bother some of my friends, I'm sure, who are doing some of this crazy stuff and giving into it. And yet I do that because I care and because we've got to find a way to make it through these rubber band snaps without freaking out. My goal is for you to come out on the other side in victory ahead, not in fear and defeat and maybe sold out, giving up your future, God forbid, giving up your mission. That would be the worst of all. So with that, I will end today's episode. I really want you to think. I want you to recognize where there's fear. I want you to recognize the reality of what's happening around you, what's happening in your own head, and what's happening in your people's head, and start to move fear into opportunity. Start to move this need to change everything into a need to not change the mission, yet maybe adjust some new ways to deliver it, new ways to impact people with it. Let that be your change. All right. With that, God bless. Thank you all. And I will look forward to you speaking with you all on the next episode. Thanks, everybody. All right. I'm going to take it off mute or allow you to unmute yourselves. Questions, comments, thoughts, concerns? I know this one was a little different.
That was deep.
What's going through your head as you hear this?
I don't know. That was really good. I can definitely see the application to a lot of people around us.
Yes.
That's for sure.
So one of the things, and I had to tune in and out at times, but when you said people are, let me just take the deal and then they're belonging to someone forever, Is that also saying that now there's more leverage than ever to not take that long-term deal or that forever deal? Like really use your power of whatever your mission is to play it in your favor?
Yes, 100%. Either to negotiate a better deal, by the way, but the problem is the challenge with negotiating a better deal is typically what you find is that person's actually headed somewhere different. They have a different motivation. They have a different end game. It could be different. They changed it. Like 2 years ago, their end game was this. Now it's that. And I need to recognize that. And if their end game is different than mine, then it's not going to work. The worst thing to do is give them control. The other thing, so say that's the situation. And yet you recognize, like, okay, I want to take advantage of this though. I want to recognize where I have more opportunity. Then the number one thing to recognize is like, you're probably not alone. There's probably a lot of other people feeling that way too, that may have it on their heart of that doesn't sound right. I don't know. And remember, I do believe in strength in numbers. I do believe, well, consolidation is going to happen. That's inevitable. So I'm not saying stay outside of that. What I'm saying is either be the one, drive it, or make sure that it is done on a not fear and it is done towards a mission. And what happens is you might suddenly start another group. You might suddenly find those who are on the same mission as you, feeling the same way, that also have a problem with like how that's going down. And there could be a bigger opportunity. Now is the time, right? The window's open. Jeff, were you going to add anything?
No, I was just taking it into. I was just agreeing with you. But
I guess the opportunity, it's like how we talk about how the consumer has all the power. Right now, there's a lot of opportunity for business owners, but you definitely see that opportunity. The window will close.
Yeah, it'll close and then it'll change and another one will open, right? It is a pendulum. It'll go back and forth and it'll just be different. The thing is, and sometimes jumping early is a bad idea. You do want to wait and see how things formulate. And this is why it's really hard to talk about, because sometimes waiting too long is worse. The best thing you could do is stay in reality and stay up to date. What's really happening, what's really happening, what's really happening. What I find is most of us tend to still want to filter. Like, I believe XYZ, so I'm going to read the news through that filter. Oh, I read that article, I disagree. No, I read that one, I agree. So I'm just looking for evidence to back up what I already believe. Whereas, so we have people in the real estate industry that are in denial on the commissions. And we've talked about that. You and I have talked about that before. Commission going down, commission compression. Like, I don't like that. I'm in that world too, but I can read it without being offended. I can read it without being in denial. Like, I want to be in truth. So once you get yourself to like, I don't care if it's good news or bad news, it's news and it's important. And once you get to that place, then you can start to see clearly what happens. I think the other challenge we tend to have is we put the blinders on what the motivation is of the other side, the other person, whoever's making the offer. And what happens is, and it's one of the worst things you could do maybe in any business deal in general, is I hear your terms, I hear your offer, I hear the shiny objects, I hear the benefits, I hear the drawbacks, and I don't take into account your deeper motivation, your deeper goal. I don't put myself in your shoes for the future. And that's maybe the worst thing. So in other words, like, if everything sounds amazing, yet I know your end goal is to cash out and my end goal is to not cash out, then it's a bad move for me. We're just not mad. So you're doing the wrong thing. It just means we're doing different things. So that's why I say to people, oh, they offer this, they offer that, they offer this. And I'm like, okay, where are they headed? What's their deeper motivation? If their motivation is to go cash out or to turn on a bunch of things to look good for an IPO or who knows what, and my motivation is to build something long-term sustaining that doesn't just get shut off because it didn't make this quarterly statement, why would I put my future in that? Why would I put my fate in that? Does that make sense? But so that's one of the biggest mistakes I see people make when they go through this the first time, is they don't actually stop and say, like, where's that person really headed? Where's that business really headed? What's their motivation?
I think that's that's where I think someone, maybe business owners, do need a coach or a little board of directors or something, because it's really hard to challenge people one-to-one. No, I actually don't believe your motivation.
Yeah. And it's one of those things because, and I don't have a problem with whatever people choose. I have a problem with us being, like I said, my biggest issue is more like the lack of reality. In a business that's headed for IPO has a different motivation than a business that won't IPO. A business that, and there's nothing wrong with that, either one, they're both fine. A business that is running a model of lose monies to run up user count so that I can get it acquired. It's a different motivation than a business who is trying to run profit and grow something the other way. Like, both models are fine. Both models work. I have no issue with that. The problem is there's an enormous amount of people who are on one team and jump in the boat with the other team in denial of that, and then have this rude awakening one. And that's an issue, right? Because what if my heart was in this business, but my heart was in this thing and I wanted to make this huge impact and I was all about this or all about that, and I had this long-term promise to myself and people, then I wouldn't head in a direction that I knew was going into the world of something that could be shut off tomorrow. And then we're going to move that direction. Does that make sense? I just wouldn't do that. It's an amazing thing how many people are all the way to speaking about terms and offers and things like that without ever really stopping and saying, like, where's this person really headed? Where's this business really headed? And how do businesses that head in that direction make decisions and behave and make choices and choose priority? And as long as I'm okay with that, let's go. But it's enormous when people don't even ask that question. And trust me, like, the terms today are meaningless in the face of the bigger goal that somebody may have. And it's happening. Like, and there's a lot of very wealthy people that wait for the fear, the virus, the economy, the collapse of this or that, or for the opportunities. A lot of investors that wait for real estate markets to crash. There's nothing wrong with that. So it's just a matter of be smart and don't hold on to the past either. Be willing to change the mechanism. Yet, and like I said, I wish I could hold this message until it was clearer, but then by then it's too late anyway.
Well, you can just keep replaying it.
Yeah. Yeah. All right.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks, everybody. Have an awesome week.